become free from the agitation of sex desire, not by any kind of physical restraint or force, but simply by becoming conscious of their identity, then this inclination to act in terms of something which is not one's identity just vanishes.
Another point, this caused some confusion when I was talking about giving money to the third world, for instance, is not actually helping people, and it's not. I wouldn't do it because it's ultimately going to keep them in the cycle of karma and cause them more suffering, and I'll have to get a reaction for it, which means I'll become. It's not going to help my pathway to getting liberation either.
So it's true. The law of karma is there that God is perfect, and therefore everything that happens is perfect. That means that we get a reaction for whatever we do. So whatever suffering is taking place in the world is not taking place because of the immediate cause, but because of the remote cause of the person's previous activities. So if we're in ignorance, then we do things which are cause distress to others, and therefore in the future we ourselves have to experience distress. Now, because everyone is controlled by the law of karma, that means that when a person who is suffering is in illusion, he is suffering, and when it's his karma for his suffering to come to an end, someone else whose karma it is to help him will come and help him, and therefore it's not that exactly the help of the person brought his suffering to an end. His suffering was coming to an end on account of his karma, but because everyone else is tied up in the bonds of karma, then another person became an instrument for giving the person his karma, this time giving him some good karma in the sense that his suffering is coming to an end, like that. So whatever actions we perform within the material world are completely bound up by the stringent laws of karma. So it has the appearance of helping or not helping, but actually every individual is personally suffering on account of their own activities. And no one else can interfere with that, because everyone else is also controlled by the actions and reactions of their past activities. So it's a perfectly orchestrated energy, the material world.
Could you just explain about how it actually helps someone? How you're doing what really helps people, if you see what I mean?
Because the cause of suffering is ignorance. Therefore, the cause of becoming free from suffering is knowledge. If a person burns himself in a fire, and then you apply some ointment to cure his burns, but then he puts his arm in the fire again, and then he puts some ointment on his burns, and then he puts his arm in the fire again. So what is the use of you putting ointment on his burns? Why don't you just tell him, don't put your arm in the fire? It's his ignorance and foolishness which is the cause of his suffering. So it's like that. Everyone is suffering in the material world because they're acting for their own pleasure rather than acting for the pleasure of God, which is everyone's constitutional position. So you tell people that, my dear friend, this is the cause of your suffering, and if you follow this remedial measure, all of your suffering will be finished forever. Then they can take to that, and that solves all the problems. If you just try to deal, and that's devotional service to Krishna. When you do that, you're serving Krishna. You get no karma for that. So when you do that, you're actually acting in a liberated state and liberating the person you're telling also. But if you simply go and try to materially help the person, then you are acting under the bondage of karma, and he is also under the bondage of karma, and neither of you are getting free. But you may entertain the mental sense gratification or the selfish satisfaction of thinking oneself to be the well-wisher and friend and wonderful person. Just look at me, how kind I am, like that. But actually, this is subtle sense gratification on the mental platform, the platform of the mind, intelligence, and the ego. So the devotees of the Lord, they are very concerned about the suffering of everyone. It's not that the devotees of the Lord who understand the laws of karma are hard-hearted and neglect the sufferings of others, but rather they try to alleviate the sufferings of others in a relevant way, in a valid way. in an effective way, and everyone else just pretends to be helping them, actually, or imagines that they're helping them, but actually they're not. When someone's knocked down by a car, then everyone stands around. No one goes up and tries to sort out the patient, because they know if you don't have proper knowledge, you may try to help the person, but when you pick them up, one of their lungs might be punctured by their ribs or something like that, you see. So what do? They say, stand back everyone, and they let a doctor through, and he deals with the person who's been knocked down by the car. So similarly, the understanding is that one who has knowledge can help someone, but one who doesn't have knowledge, in the attempt to help someone, he may be well-intentioned, but he doesn't help them at all, but rather he compounds their suffering more and more.
My mom said she thought it was cruel that someone be born in the third world in a situation where they couldn't practice Krishna consciousness and get liberation from the suffering in the way that you were talking about.